I recently won the title of Miss Wheelchair America, so she wanted me to come and talk to you guys and to share my story. So I'm really glad to be here. Basically, what I'd like to do today, we've got an hour, which is a good long chunk of time. And since you're a small group, I want this to be pretty casual, like we're just hanging out. And I'll share my story, and then, well, first I'm actually going to ask you all to introduce yourselves. What your name is, where you're from, and what your emphasis of study is here at Pierce College. Then I'm going to tell my story, and then I'm going to ask you questions so you can give me some feedback, and then I'm going to open the time for question and answer. And if we still have some time left over, then I'll split you up into groups and have you do some group discussions. So that's how today will kind of look. So I'd like to start just by hearing who you are a little bit. I talked to Bevan a little, and she said that a lot of you guys came here through scholarships and programs in your countries, and I'd just like to hear a little bit from each of you as to what brought you here, what you're studying, and kind of what you hope to get out of your time here at Pierce College and in America. So let's start with you in the back, and we'll just go across like that and then to the front. So you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, my name is Gunawan.
Can you say that again?
Gunawan.
Gunawan?
Yeah.
Call me Gun.
Okay.
I am
Awesome.
from Indonesia.
What are you studying?
What are you going to study
I'm
here?
studying media here.
Awesome. That's good.
I prefer questions. You want to ask me some questions?
Well, actually, let's just start with that. We'll start with name, where you're from, and what you're studying at Pierce College. And then I'll ask you a little question, some more questions here.
Hello, my name is Habibie. I'm from Indonesia, and I'm studying business management.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Kanita and I'm from Pakistan. I'm going to study business.
Hi, I'm Rana. I'm from Indonesia and I'm going to study journalism.
You're going to study what?
Journalism.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, my name is Grace. I'm from Indonesia and I'm going to study early childhood development.
Hi, I'm Sena. I'm from Turkey. I'm going to study early childhood education.
Oh, awesome.
Hello, I'm Ashwini from India. I'm studying media.
Hello, my name is Mary from Ivory Coast, West Africa, and I'm studying marketing.
Marketing.
I'm Salman from India, here I'm studying media.
Hi, I'm Salima from Pakistan and I'm studying business management.
Hi, I'm Amanda from Brazil and I'm going to study media.
Hi, I'm Jessica from Brazil and I'm going to study media.
My name is Ishtiyaq Qureshi. I'm from Pakistan and I'm here to study journalism.
My name is Sakhan. I'm from Turkey and I will study digital design. Media.
I'm Junfu from South Africa and I'll be studying business management here.
I'm Zefa. I'm from India. I'll be studying business administration.
Okay. Well, that gives me an idea. A lot of you are studying media or business or journalism. So those are all really awesome areas of study to make an impact in your country and in your community. And I know that from my own experience, excuse me, my own experience with media here is kind of how I've come to the success that I have. So that's kind of the end of my story. So I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Tacoma, Washington, which is the big city connected to Lakewood. And I was raised in Chehalis, Washington, which is about an hour south from here. And I was actually adopted at birth. I was born with partial limbs, so this is the way I was born. I've been this way my whole life. And my parents are really amazing, my adopted parents. They not only adopted me, but they adopted 5 of my other siblings, and they also have special needs. So I have 2 brothers with Down syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Yeah.
But, okay. And then I have 3 younger siblings that have an undiagnosed genetic disorder that basically affects their muscles. So they have a hard time walking, but they are all actually doing very well, and they don't use wheelchairs, so they've really kept up with keeping up with their health, so they're actually doing very well in life. And then my parents had 2 children, my brother and sister. So there's 8 of us growing up, so 10 including my parents. So I grew up in a very big household, and actually the three youngest in our family are Hispanic, so their family was from Mexico. So there was not only diversity in disability, but there was also diversity in ethnicity in my family growing up. So I feel that was a very enriching environment to grow up in, just because it gave me a worldview that people are different and that's okay. And my parents really encouraged me to be independent. They didn't coddle me. They treated me like every other kid. I had to do my chores and clean my room. And they, more than anything, they saw my talents early on in my life. And so my talents that showed up early were singing, and they got me into voice lessons when I was 6 years old. And I continued to study voice all the way up till senior year of high school, and then I actually continued on in higher education studying vocal performance. And they also saw that I loved to dance, and so they got me dancing. My aunt was a ballerina, and she would come over and teach me what she called Jenny Ballet, because it was my own version of ballet. And then I would perform a lot in like local talent shows and in like school plays and school musical productions. And you know, obviously my parents always encouraged me to get good grades. And so they really saw that they didn't just look at my disability and say, oh, it's okay, you can just get by. They said, you're a talented person and you need to go out in the world and make a difference because your story is powerful. And I'm really thankful that my parents taught me that, because it really made me who I am today. But I went through some things in my school years that were very challenging. When I entered school in kindergarten, at the time there had been a law passed several years before I went to kindergarten called the Rehabilitation Act. It was formed in 1973, and before that, public schools were not required to educate people with disabilities in the public schools in America. But after that, there was a law that said that all public schools had to educate students with disabilities and give them equal access to education. And so when I went off to kindergarten, the school that I went to had not yet followed that law. And so my parents had to hire a lawyer, and they did win the case. And so I was sent to kindergarten in a school where there was no special education, and the teachers had not been trained yet in how to educate children with disabilities. So that was very challenging. I did get teased a lot in school, and there wasn't a lot of efforts being made for inclusion of students with disabilities. So I kind of had to fight my way through the system, which made me strong, but it also brought down my self-esteem quite a lot when I was in school. But the great thing is that when I went off to college, I studied here in Tacoma, actually, at Pacific Lutheran University. And I studied vocal performance and psychology. And that was actually the time that I met Bevan. And I got connected with a church there in Tacoma and just friends there at PLU. And these friends were so encouraging. And it was the first time in my life that I felt like I really belonged. And I felt like people saw me for who I was and not my disability. They saw me as someone who could sing well, and someone who had a story to tell, and somebody that could dance really great, and somebody that had a great personality. And that's what they said to me. They spoke those words over me. And I suddenly was surrounded by a lot of encouragement and positive words. And all of that positivity undid the things that I heard in my school years that were negative. And it really built me up inside, and it really improved my self-esteem. And part of that was getting more involved in my faith and in my relationship with God too. And so all of that really provided a positive experience for me, and it showed me that I had a purpose in life. And I know that I'd been questioning that up until then. I was like, why am I like this? Why was I born with partial limbs and everybody else looks normal? Or at least that's what it felt like. And so I felt like in that positive environment, I could suddenly see, oh, I see the reason why I am the way I am. It's for a purpose. And that, knowing that purpose, just, it filled my life with positivity and goodness and hope that I had a story to tell to the world. And so after PLU, I went on and got a degree in radio broadcasting in Lakewood, actually at Clover Park Tech, right down the street from here. And then I went on and got a master's in counseling at Faith Seminary, which is located in North Tacoma. And all of that education really opened the doors to what I do now, which is public speaking, and I do this as a living. For many years, though, I worked in office jobs, and then in 2011, I lost my job, and actually that was a blessing. It was hard at first, but it was a blessing because it opened the door for me to start my own motivational speaking business. So I started my motivational speaking business in 2011, and I started to share my story in schools. I started an anti-bullying campaign called The Power of Words. So I go into schools, K through 12, and actually colleges too, and share my own story of being teased in school and how that affected me, and also my experience with the positive environment at PLU and with my friends and at church and all of that. And really, that story empowers students to see that they can make a choice to create a positive environment in their school where people aren't being bullied. And really what that does is make a difference for all the students. Hopefully, not only in Tacoma, but now I get a chance to take this message national. So in March, I won the title of Miss Wheelchair Washington. I competed in Seattle, and then I got to join the national competition in Houston, Texas, and I brought home the title of Miss Wheelchair America. So my platform as Miss Wheelchair America is Inclusion Revolution, and so basically there's two aspects to my platform. One is to advocate for the inclusion model of education. If you haven't heard of what that is, basically it's the inclusion of students with disabilities in mainstream classes. So right now there's still a lot of segregation happening in American schools where students with disabilities are in separate classrooms from their peers. And I believe that that is not healthy for the students with disabilities or the students that are in mainstream classes. Because what it teaches the students with disabilities is that you're different and you don't belong. And it teaches the students that are in mainstream classes that people with disabilities are over there. So we don't really, we're not friends with them and we don't really know them, they just are over there. And that really creates an environment of segregation and discrimination. And I think that that translates when people become adults. And it creates a lot of social issues. So my goal, there is actually already a law in America, it's called IDEA, which stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And this law states that students with disabilities are to be included in mainstream classes. So the separate segregation of students in separate classes is actually no longer legal. But kind of like when I was going into school, even though that law has been around since 2004, a lot of schools have not been held accountable to follow that law, and so they are still segregating students with disabilities away from mainstream students. So my platform as Miss Wheelchair America is to really shed light to that and to start holding schools accountable to following that law. The other side of the inclusion revolution is to advocate for people with disabilities to be included in the arts, like acting, singing, and dancing, and anything that has to do with the stage. Right now, most arts companies are not, there's no law that says that they have to include people with disabilities in their company. So people that have talents, like me, I love to sing, I love to dance, and I love to act, but I don't have the ability to join companies in America and do that as a profession because they don't legally have to hire me because I'm disabled. They can say, you're disabled, so even though you're talented, we're not gonna hire you. So that's my platform. I get to speak all over the country this year in major cities in the United States, and I'm really looking forward to it. It also is a chance for me to promote my motivational speaking business and to just really grow more in my success as a business owner and as an advocate for people with disabilities. So that's my story. And now I'd like to kind of just start interacting with you and maybe ask you guys some questions about maybe your own countries. And so that's what I'd like to start with. So first of all, living in America, I know that I'm very privileged. Although all these things that I've just said are challenges that I've faced, one thing I do know is that we, in America, we have the Americans with Disability Act, and it does open a lot of doors for people with disabilities to have equal rights. And I know that there are other countries that have similar acts, but there are also a lot of countries that don't provide those rights for people with disabilities. And so I think that I really consider that a privilege, although we still have some ways to go in providing equal rights for people with disabilities. At least I know that I have a voice to speak up about it. And even though I have a disability, I can earn a living, and I do live on my own and pay my own bills. And I have a nice condominium that I live in. And so I'm very blessed. And I know that a lot of other people don't have those privileges, even in America, but especially in the world. And so I really consider that a privilege. But what I'd like to ask you is, what are some of the challenges that maybe you're seeing in your country that you would like to see change? And you can just shout it out. You don't have to raise your hand or stand up or anything.
Don't be shy.
I'll just stand here. We can have awkward silence. And you can actually turn the video off.
Okay.